Welcome to Retirement with Jim. So today, can you change your mindset about money? So before we get started, if you like my content, please consider hitting the like button, subscribe to my channel, helps my channel grow. And along with that, feel free to leave comments. Love to hear from you. So can you change your mindset about money? That information comes from The Psychology of Money, written by Morgan Housel. And it really says a lot about how we look at money. So the first thing is, you need to focus on your goals. You have to have your goals because your goals really are a plan to move forward, to save money, to get you in the eventual long term of where you want to be. Now you need to save and you need to live below your means. If you really want to, make headway, we're always living paycheck to paycheck. And that's because we don't save enough money and put enough money aside. And we're always looking at buying the next latest, greatest thing. And it's not necessarily beneficial to us. Now, you need to invest money and you need to, be patient about it because it's not going to just happen overnight. But you need to invest. And whether you're picking stocks yourself or you're investing in index funds, index funds is a great way because you get a little bit of everything and they have traditionally done well. And so, and you're in it for the long haul. So when you think about it, when you're in it for the long haul, so whether the market turns down, you're not worried about selling because you're not interested in selling. You are interested in just simply saving. So, and along with that, don't measure yourself against others because as you do that, you're not equal. You're not equal to what they're doing because they have different goals, different things that they're pursuing. And so, if you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, it's a never-ending battle that's not necessarily going to end well for you. So along with that, you need to not let your expectations spiral out of control. Your expectations need to be reasonable, so that you are living within your means and you are achieving the goals that you set out for yourself. They say in there that happiness is the gap between expectations and reality. And it's really so true because, the gap between what we expect and what we really live, can be a small one, but in many cases it can be quite large based on if your expectations are not reasonable expectations. And, along with that, you're spending, more because of your expectations. So if you are looking at what you're spending, be reasonable. Don't look to spend every single penny you make. Do you really need the next greatest thing? Probably not. So remember that you will not solve all of your problems with more money, especially concerning happiness. It's here in America, it's very easy to get into debt. Everyone's willing to, give you credit. Now, yes, we need credit. We need credit because we're buying a house and maybe a car loan. But where we really fall into trouble is credit in terms of credit cards. They make it easy to give you an outstanding line of credit, and there you go. You start buying the things you want, and if you don't pay for them monthly, the interest rate on it is just going to kill you. And that's how we all easily get behind. I did when I was younger. Oh man, I wanted to be able to have things, and credit was a great way to go, and it was a necessary evil, so I thought. But really, all it did was, create that debt. So remember, you want to use your money to be independent. You want to be free to do what you want. You know, so along with that, when you buy the next thing that you like or want, you know, it's the bank that owes that. You don't own it. But if you save that money, you own the money. It's your money. It's in the bank. It's yours. But if you're doing things on credit, until you pay that off, they own that. The bank owns that. So you're not necessarily, and it's why so many of us end up with credit card debt. Now you have paid so much more for that item because you wanted the ease and the desire to be able to get it. I grew up in Chicago, and I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters. So there's 9 of us, and we led a very modest life. We were middle class by all standards, but we were happy. We really had an enjoyable childhood, but we learned a lot of lessons about because we were middle class, we were modest. We had to really get a job and go to work at an early age if we wanted our own money and to be able to save. My parents didn't have where we got allowances and chores. We actually had to do chores and things like that, but we weren't paid for them. We weren't compensated. That was all part of what we had to do as a family to all work together. And I look back on what that instills in you. It instills that desire to work, to earn money. So as I worked and I got older, I was always chasing something. I wanted a better house. I wanted a newer car. I wanted a better job that, promoted or paid me more. I wanted the latest, greatest thing. Now I realize, that my actual happiness is not related to those things. It's really about my freedom to make the choices I want. And it took me a great deal of my life to finally learn that true happiness is about that freedom of choice. So as you're chasing that dream, the American dream about what you want, and you're finding yourself further and further in debt, you got to ask yourself, okay, I got to find a way to become more debt free. Okay to have a mortgage, okay to have a car payment. But once you pay that car off, don't go out and run out and get the next greatest car. Take care of the one you have, and, for instance, act like you still have a car payment, put that money in the bank. It's a great way to save, especially with today's car payments, you could save some substantial money per month as if you were still making that payment. That's a great way to boost up your savings account. So you gotta take a look at how you view money and what it means to you, and how you can change the outcome. So really you want to have more of that savings mindset. Money you spend on credit, like I said, is the bank's, because they own it. Money you save, that's your future. That's really where it's at. So just remember that sometimes as you work, what are you chasing? Do you really need to keep up with the Joneses? I think back now on my life, and I look back on a lot of the things that I've given away in the last 5 or 10 years, and made me feel a whole lot better turning it over to somebody else, to make use of. But you really have to take a look at how you view money. So with that, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on what your views of money are. I'd love to hear from you. So with that, I'm going to tell you have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.